Today I'm going to tell you a story about a girl named Velvet, but there are two things that you should know before I start. Velvet, besides being this girl's name, well, hey, there's Rory and Ewan. Hi, you guys. And Brian. Okay, there are two things you should know before I start the story. Hi, Rory. Hi, Ewan. Okay, that's not it, but the two things you should know are that velvet, besides being the girl's name, is a kind of fabric, kind of soft, smooth fabric that shines in the different lights. You can kind of see how it picks up the light. And the other thing you should know is that Velvet is a girl who's just moved to a new town. She lives in a house that's new to her. And she doesn't know any of the kids at school. She met them and they haven't met her. And that's when this story starts, on the first day of school. So on the first day of school, lots of the kids brought their teacher a present, maybe a box of fancy flavored tea, or a box of chocolates, or maybe a scarf like the one I'm wearing. But Velvet, she brought the teacher an egg carton. And inside the egg carton was a green neon shoelace and 7 stones. Can you see them nestled down in there? 7 little rocks that she told the teacher would look very pretty if she put them in a bowl of water. Well, at lunchtime, Velvet didn't have a fancy insulated lunch bag or a beautiful lunchbox with characters on it. She got out her lunch and it was in a used flour bag. It was a very strong, durable bag, so she could use it over and over and over again, it turned out. And while some of the kids were eating tuna fish sandwiches or ham and cheese sandwiches, or maybe a piece of pizza, Velvet pulled out some carrots and a mustard sandwich. That was a little different. Okay. Then at recess, the girls noticed that Velvet didn't have a new outfit for the first day of school. And they thought, wow, she's kind of different. First, she brings the teacher an egg carton with rocks, and she carries her lunch in a flour sack. And now she doesn't have a new school outfit? That was pretty curious to them. Well, the strangeness didn't stop after the first day. When it came to be show and tell time, Velvet brought a crab claw to show. It even moved a little bit so you could see how the crab could pinch somebody. Luckily, 3 of the other girls brought their baby dolls. One that could talk, one that could cry, and one that could wet. And that's really more what the kids had been expecting, not a crab claw. Well, most of the kids had new boxes of crayons, maybe a 24 pack, or a 36 pack, or maybe a giant 64 pack. But Velvet had 8 crayons, and some of them had already been used. Well, although the kids were polite to Velvet, nobody asked her to be their play buddy on the recess playground or walk home after school. No one wanted to be quite as different as Velvet was. On the day that they had their first field trip, the kids were yelling to each other and talking in the bus and calling each other by their nicknames. And they said, "Hey, Velvet, do you have a nickname?" And things got very quiet. And Velvet said, "I don't have a nickname, no, but my father said that when I was born, the sun was just coming up over the mountains. And outside, it looked as though the world had been covered with a blanket of soft, smooth, purple velvet." Everyone got very quiet, and they imagined how beautiful it must have been on the morning that Velvet was born. The next week, there was a school drawing contest, and all the kids knew that Sarah Garvey would win the contest. She had the best markers and the biggest paint set and the most colored pencils, more than anybody else in the class. So when it was time for the winner to be announced on another day, They let Sarah sit right up in front, so it'd be easy for her to get her award. Boy, was everyone surprised when the teacher announced that Velvet had won. Velvet had drawn an apple. "It's only a piece of fruit," complained Sarah, who thought she was going to win. "Wow, it looks so real," said one of the kids. "It looks like I could pick it up and take a bite out of it," said another. With just her 8 crayons, Velvet had drawn the most beautiful apple the kids had ever seen. Little by little, the things that Velvet did began to make sense to the other children. She knew so many interesting things. I mean, the teacher even let her talk for 2 days about her rock collection. That included even a rock from a real volcano. Still, on the day that Velvet handed out her birthday invitations, the whispering began. "I bet she lives in an old, dark, spooky house," said Sarah. Yep, well, that made everybody feel a little bit nervous about going to the party. Velvet lived at the end of a very long road in a little tiny house. It didn't have a jungle gym. It didn't have a tetherball pole with a shiny ball. There was an old tire swing hanging from an big old tree in the front yard, but that was it. Her parents greeted the kids as they came to the house, and Velvet's sister painted their faces and made them shiny crowns that they could wear during the party. And with big old boxes, used cardboard boxes and blankets, the kids changed Velvet's room into a castle. They had a wonderful time. They jumped off the bed into the blue blanket moat that was down below, and they pretend to be kings and queens and knights. And later they played marbles and jacks and cards, and Velvet even taught them to draw an apple. By the time the last day of school rolled around, the kids had changed. They had learned to appreciate how Velvet was different than they had been. The classmates, the other kids in Velvet's class, as goodbye presents, brought the teacher bunches of flowers from their garden. And they drew self-portraits so that the teacher could remember what they looked like. And they made handmade cards. And they brought the teacher lots of cool rocks they had found. They had learned to like the way that Velvet was different. And that's the story of Velvet. I hope that you are able to look around and see the wonder all around you and appreciate the simple things, just like Velvet did.